human rights are rights guaranteed by God and also guaranteed by the Constitution, recognized, by the Constitution. I think of almost every country, and every government, every government is supposed to see to it that these rights are not violated. These rights are very, very crucial. Without them, I don't think that life has a meaning. Okay. We talk about the right to life.
The right to life. That's
which is very, very important. Because no matter what happens, you need to live. If you don't live, what can you do? You have to be alive to achieve anything. We have to be alive to have a government. We have to be alive to vote. We have to be alive to work. So first of all, there is right to life, which the law says you cannot take without the power of the court. Only the court can pronounce or withdraw that right. And that would be when you also has taken someone's life, which you don't have a right to. And so we have all of those rights: right to association, right to freedom of speech, and all of those. There are so many of those rights. But
now, what has your constituency as a lawyer been doing to sensitize Nigerians about their rights? Because rights are often violated when you don't know them. Now, for instance, I drive around the city and then a policeman stopped me and they say, "See, you've broken a traffic light." And I crossed that traffic light when it was on amber, not on red.
When it was on amber?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the truth is...
And I'm held and, taken to a place where I was counseled, psychological counseling. I've seen it happen here and there. Meanwhile, you did not break any law. And then you go to a police station, they say bail is free, and they insist that you must pay 5,000 naira or 10,000 naira, as the case may be. What are lawyers doing to sensitize Nigerians on their rights?
Well, the truth is that the NBA has a section that does all of that. We have a section that handles human rights. We also have a section that enlightens on enlightenment of Nigerians. And I think that there are lawyers that come on your programs who share with Nigerians some of these rights. And also I know that they also appear on other platforms and other radio stations, on television. I think the NBA is doing a lot in that regard. Yes, and the department that handles human rights, whenever there are such violations, you see them. They come out. We come out. We fight for the enforcement of those rights, and also where the rights have been violated, we take up the matters pro bono. And
pro bono.
Yeah, it's pro bono. We take them up pro bono, because most of these victims are people who don't have who can afford legal services.
Okay, here it is.
Yes.
The police regularly commit human rights violations, including unlawful killings, torture, and other ill treatment, and enforced disappearances. The justice system is under-resourced and riddled with delays. And prisons are overcrowded. The majority of inmates are pre-trial detainees, some held for many years. Hundreds of people remain on death row, many sentenced after unfair trials. A conflict in the Niger Delta threatens the safety of lives of residents. Human rights defenders and journalists face intimidation and harassment. And violence against women is widespread, and the government fails to protect the rights of children. Forced evictions take place across the country on a steady. Now, some of these human rights have remained untreated for years, even as you lawyers talk about it every year.
They have remained.
have remained as they are. There are forced evictions, and then several other concerns such as sexual violence against women.
Well, you see, the truth is that we don't run a perfect system. We are trying our best. Okay, Nigeria is a very big country, and there's no way that we can cover the whole of the country or solve all of these human rights issues as perfectly as we would want them to be. But I know that in our little way and given our little resources, I think we're trying. Yeah, though there are still some of these violations that, and in any case, not all of them comes to us. I also know that with regards to violation of or abuses to women, of women, I know that we have the female arm of the NBA, which is called FIDA, and I know that they take up a lot of such issues. I listen to them on radio, and I even listen to some of the victims when they come on radio, and then when they talk, they call sometimes at the presenters, call FIDA, and then FIDA tells them to send those people to their offices. I know that we're doing well. We're doing well. The NBA is trying.
Since independence, successive political leadership, including military despots, have made claims that they are specifically focused on creating the right environment for the advancement of human progress and positive values, such as mainstreaming the strict adherence of human rights principles in governance and society. And meanwhile, successive administrations in the past half a century and counting have often made the theoretical claims of setting up institutional mechanisms and enforce far-reaching policies targeted at the advancement of human rights. And shockingly, it was during the infamous military dictatorship of late General Sani Abacha that a national institution for the promotion and protection of human rights known as the National Human Rights Commission was created. But essentially, the then military regimes of Generals Abacha and Abdul Salam treated the Human Rights Commission as mere smokescreen for laying claim to a government that was meeting up with international human rights obligations. So, would we say our scorecard as a country on human rights is up to 50 out of 100?
As a country?
As a country.
No. As a country, I still score as low.
You still score as low?
Yes.
As a country?
I score as low because we have not, as a people, we have not really internalized the values, of these human rights, particularly that of life. We take the laws into our hands, even as Nigerians. I know what we do most of the times is to put the blame at the doorstep of the institutions of government. It's very easy for us to say, "Oh, police is not respecting our rights," or the army, or
the police seems to be the worst culprits when it comes to human rights violations.
You think so? How about us as a people? For instance, I think it was last month that someone behind my house, I was in the house and I was listening to this commotion outside. There were a lot of noises raised, people screaming and all of that, and I came out and they said there was a guy who picked up the handbag of a lady.
So commotion.
Yes. So the guy they were chasing him. A lot of other guys were chasing. This was in the night, around about 7 to 8 p.m. And then they were chasing him, and then finally they caught him. The way they beat that guy, it was so merciless. I came around with some other people and we're appealing to this young man. Say, please look. It made me to know that the human beings are really strong. I thought the guy was going to die. If you saw the heavy planks and the heavy woods, the wood and the plank with which they were hitting him on his head, I thought that guy was actually going to pass out. But the guy was bleeding I still have the photos. Maybe at the end of the program I'll show you the photos. The guy was bleeding profusely, and they were still hitting him. This young man, very young man. I called them, I said, don't you have pity? Don't you have compassion? And they were telling me, they come here, they steal cars, they do all of those stuff. Eventually we appealed to them, said, look, take the guy to the police station. even on the way to the police station as they were going, someone would run from the back, jump and kick him. Someone would still, a guy jumped, caught one heavy on a tree,
branch.
a very branch, and on his head.
Smashed it.
These are all people who don't have any respect for right to life. You know, you're taking the laws into your hands. That's also part of what we're talking about. That's human rights abuse. You know, look at all the children who are hawking in the street. That's child abuse. You know, they're supposed to be in school. They're not in school. How many children are out of school in Nigeria? So many. Is it about 30 million or 13 million? I think about 13 million or so out of school children are supposed to be in school. These are all abuses, you know. So we, even as children, and I think that we should take these lessons to school and start teaching our children and conscientizing them on the right, on the right of individuals and how to respect those rights and not to take laws also into your hands. So we are also guilty.
Now, freedom of speech, religion, and press are constitutionally protected human rights in Nigeria. However, the freedom of the press is limited through anti-defamation laws with severe penalties. Journalists found to be in violation of these laws have been detained and arrested without trial. Frank Tete, out of your outreaches and advocacy over the past few years that I've known, what has been achieved when it comes to human rights?
First, let me thank you for the well-researched presentation, because today is World Human Rights Day and I can see that you have put in a lot of quality in this presentation, and I want to congratulate Greetings FM, Greetings 105.7 for this kind of presentation. It gladdens my heart a lot. This is the most important day for those of us in the human rights advocacy and human rights defenders community. So thank you, Martin. I listened to you. I listened to the interaction with the brilliant colleague of mine, and I also agree with him and slightly disagree with him on a few issues. Speaking directly to the issues you raised with regard to press freedom, Nigeria enjoys an unusual degree of press freedom, I must say. And we have, even before the time of Goodluck Jonathan as president and all through, even in times of President Buhari, we have not ceased to criticize government or officials. We have unrestrained liberty to apply the Section 39, the privileges and the protections of Section 39 of the Constitution, which grants the fundamental right to Nigerians to hold an opinion and to also express such opinions. You know, we have seen pockets of journalists that have been harassed. Tony Ezimaku of Daily Independent was detained by the DSS. Samuel Ogudipe of Premium Times was also arrested for leaking the documents which the police thought was embarrassing to it. These are pockets of incidences where it appears that there is a stifling of the right to free press. Yes, this as a result of the fact that there is lack of a culture of respect for human rights, especially on the part of the law enforcement. But a lot has been done to correct that. And Nigeria has been known world over to have had a very vibrant press, right from the days of the Newswatch, even though we saw the fear that reverberated across the country when Delegiwa was killed with a letter bomb. Nevertheless, it's up to us as individuals to rise up to hold on to those rights that have been guaranteed by the fundamental law of the land, which says you have a right to hold an opinion and fully express it. And not only to do that, but to establish newspapers, to establish newspaper organizations, to establish media houses like radio and television houses, to disseminate whatever you think, and also to establish schools and religious houses to propagate what you believe. That's the way. Nigeria is one of the freest countries in the world, and it will interest you, for those of us who practice in the realm of human rights, that we have some of the best human rights laws across the world. I've traveled around the world, particularly to the seat of human rights in Geneva, and I've looked at on a comparative level the laws of other countries. No other country has this kind of practice where Justice Kutigi had, of blessed memory. God will continue to bless the memory of Justice Kutigi, Legbo Kutigi, for enacting to law the fundamental rights enforcement rules of 2009, whereby a lawyer like this, he mentioned the word pro bono publico. That is, he for the public good, he can take up any human rights matter, even the one that doesn't concern him, so long as it breaches not only the Constitution of Nigeria, not only the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, not only the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, any act to which, any instrument to which Nigeria is a signatory, any provision of which has been breached by anybody, any lawyer can go, not only a lawyer, any individual for that matter, can go and enforce that right. No country in the world has that kind of privilege, and that's what we have in Nigeria. That's the reason why we're celebrating World Human Rights Day today. It's beyond the signing of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. Today marks the 70th anniversary of the signing of the birth of the modern day human rights under the United Nations system. But in Nigeria particularly, citizens must know that the regime of human rights we have in Nigeria is worth celebrating, is worth preserving, because if we don't do that one way or the other, whether through the back door or through the window or through the front door, they may take it away. So we want to continue to celebrate it and emphasize it, because they are rights that are inalienable. They are given to us not by any government, but simply because we are human beings.
All right, before we proceed and talk about your Human Rights Fiesta, which will be taking place later today.
I'm inviting you to come and sing. I know you know how to sing.
All right.
So sing about human rights.
Yeah. Now, as of December 2016, Nigeria is yet to criminalize police and military use of torture.
Oh, no. Okay.
Hold on.
Yes.
However, a measure to outlaw the torture passed Nigeria's House of Representatives in June of 2016. What is the human rights community doing to see that this is criminalized? Police.
No. You see, whether you like it or not, you see, President Buhari appears to have a lot of critics. But in 2017, President Muhammadu Buhari of the Federal Republic of Nigeria signed into law the Anti-Torture, they signed into law the Anti-Torture Act. As we speak today, any law enforcement agent that applies any form of torture in the slightest manner can go to jail. So there is a new regime, there's a new practice with regards to torture as we speak. So, because I have been privileged to have been appointed into the Interministerial Committee on the Universal Periodic Review on Human Rights in Nigeria, I've looked through a number of instruments, a number of laws, a number of policies and programs of the government between 2000, particularly between 2017 and 2011 and 2017, and I've discovered that with the enactment of laws like the Violence Against Persons Act, with the amendment of the NAPTIP Act, it appears that the structures to protect the human rights of Nigerians are there. What is the basic missing link is the applicable knowledge that is lacking, firstly, among the law enforcement, and then more importantly among the citizenry. And that's the reason why I cannot agree more with my learned friend when he says that there is need for conscious increase in the knowledge of human rights among the populace. That's why we want to thank you, Greatest 105.7, for taking our time to give this quality broadcast so that people will know the significance of today, to know that, look, they need to know that 30 rights, 30 articles were signed in 1948 for their benefits. They need to know that they are entitled to the good life, not because they belong to PDP or to APC, not because they are white, black, or short or tall, but simply because they are human beings. That's how to make a country move forward. That's the reason, that's the main difference between the countries of the West and then the countries of Africa, where you record high incidences of poverty and suffering.
All right, Tony Idoko, the second lawyer that is with me. And discrimination of women is rampant in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Is it cultural or is by default?
Well, culturally, we are not set on default. Yeah, but I think that is also changing.
It's changing.
Yeah, that is also changing culturally. We discriminate around. Against women. I think it's all over. It's not just in Nigeria. It's not just in. I think it's the world over. You know, the world over. Just that in other climes they do it subtly. Okay, look at America now with all of its civilization and everything. They've never had a woman president. You know, so I don't think it's something is wrong. I think something is still wrong but recently I think that's why I supported Hillary Clinton. I wanted that break. I wanted to see that change, and also because she was competent, you know, and so discrimination against women is very rampant here. But like I said, it's changing. People are beginning to gradually
accept women.
Yes, we're beginning to accept
as
them.
equally smart humans.
Exactly.
Oh, no. I want to quickly cut in here. I think we should be careful in getting involved with the battle of the sexes. We appreciate that in Nigeria, there's absolutely no difference between a man and a woman. There are equal opportunities for men and women in Nigeria. Unfortunately, wait. If you look at the election that was held recently, the women are complaining. The women complained. Let me tell you, is there a woman? Let me tell you what with the human rights issue there. Yeah. Only when a woman comes up to say, I have been denied such a privilege simply because I'm a woman. There are hardly circumstances like that, I must say.
No,
but you see,
it was because they were women.
No, only when we find such circumstances. And clearly, men are also discriminated against in our country. There's several ways. Just because he's a man, and then when you discriminate against a woman just because he's a woman. So we must appreciate first and foremost that in Nigeria, we as a people have come to now accept that the woman is capable of the same competence, if not even more than that of a man. We've reached that point.
And that's why I said it's changing. Okay, the trajectory is changing, but you see, it's still very visible. If you look at appointments in government, why is it that we have more men in government?
Because more men get involved in politics.
A lot of women also get involved in politics more than the number.
More men get. You see, we must also strive for the application of the affirmative principle. By virtue of cultural limitations in time past, many women haven't actually had more opportunities. But I do not think that it's a deliberate state policy or a deliberate policy of any political party to ensure that women are relegated. If that happens, Tony Doko, he knows, all of us will join forces together to resist it.
That's why I said the story is changing. It's changing. Little by little, it is changing. We are now even having more women come out to contest, you know, for the office of the president. You know, in the past, they couldn't even...
That does not mean she would win.
Of course, I know.
And not because she's a woman, but because of the kind of political configuration that we have in our country. Because you go outside this country, they will tell you that Obi Ezekwesili has the competence to deliver Nigeria from its doldrums. However, that she will not win, possibly, although she may not like this, but as on a realistic note, that she will not win is not because she's a woman. It's because she does not belong to the right right configuration. I would say so.
I agree with. Look, there was a state. I know a state where I don't want to mention the state. It's one of the states in North Central. Where one of the guys from the state told me that look, the reason why there was a lady who came out to contest for the office of governor. I think it was in 2015. No, not 15. I think it was 2011. And he told me, say, there's no way that a woman can be governor in their state. It cannot happen. But you see, with the story in Taraba, okay, the story in Taraba
with Mama Taraba.
Yeah, I think that was even progressive, because she even had to go to court, because at the time we even heard that she was declared the governor. She was declared. I mean, that she won the election. That was before INEC declared. But the news, everything, you know, showed that she had won the election. So we can see that there's a departure. There's a progress. We're making progress in that regard. But we cannot, deny the fact that women still suffer discrimination.
I would want to resist that kind of opinion. The reason being that we want to see women give us concrete pieces of evidence that they are being discriminated against. And if that's the case, I think that's shameful. I hardly see such things, but I agree that women I agree that women have a shortage of opportunities, but it's as a result of the long past of neglect. But presently, in terms of quality, in terms of competence, we don't think that there is any difference between a man and a woman in Nigeria.
Certainly not.
People, we have to know what the rights are before we can enjoy them. There are what we refer to as civil and political rights. Those are the rights that are contained in Chapter 4. They are called fundamental human rights. Then those other rights that determine the quality of life that citizens are entitled to are contained, unfortunately, in Chapter 2 of our Constitution. My learned friend knows well, and we all cry every time, that why would the basic things like right to food, right to housing, right to health, right to education, right to work, right to social security, the things for which a government should be measured are now taken away from Chapter 4 and put in Chapter 2, and then the Constitution now says don't go to court to enforce them. It gives a license to the government to do nothing. If the government, whether the government does well or it fails, the government should be left alone. And I mean, so those are the things we are talking about. When we set up citizens advocacy, we knew that the rights we're going to advocate for are not very easily enforceable in Nigeria. These are called social and economic and cultural rights. Right to food, right to housing, right to health. They are basically contained in Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These rights, we need to let our governments know that they need to, and I'm happy with what SERAP has done by going to the ECOWAS court to advocate and to ensure that universal basic education has now become a fundamental right in Nigeria. So every Nigerian now has a right to free primary education. It's as a result of the work of an NGO, and it's as a result of advocacy. It's as a result of engaging with the law. So when it becomes very discouraging when someone says we are in our bid to increase the human rights consciousness, he refers to it as noise making. But my Tony Doku will quickly defend him that he has a right to hold an opinion and express that opinion, and he does have that right.
Yeah, it's not as free as it ought to. Though I understand that we enjoy some level of freedom, which is better than what maybe a few other countries, get. But I think there's a level of censorship, that's going on. We cannot run away. There's a friend. I have a friend who works for a media outfit, and he told the media outfit belongs to a politician, and he told me that, there's a limit. Yes, there are some things that they are not allowed to report and all of that. And I also know that the MBA, is it the MBS, the commission, the body
NBC.
that regulates the NBC, that regulates the media industry in Nigeria. I know that it comes hard on
broadcast houses.
Yes,
Well, in any case, Tony Doko, just in case that my rights have been violated, many times people don't know where to go to, report such cases of violations. Instead, you just say report now. You say to who? You just lackluster, stay back. Where are the immediate agencies or organizations you can knock on their door and they will listen to you?
If your rights are violated, you can report to the police.
What if they were the ones that violated the right?
Then you can go see a lawyer.
Okay.
You get a lawyer. If you cannot afford the services of a lawyer, you can go to legal aid. The government has an organization called the Legal Aid Council, and what it does is to carry on the cases of people, indigent clients. I mean, the victims of these rights abuses. You can also approach the NBA. You can approach the NBA, and I think Frank didn't exactly. What Frank said wasn't exactly the truth. The NBA has a section on human rights that is headed by the first vice president of the NBA. Yes.
Which has not been known to close any case on human rights anyway.
Oh, no, they do. It's just that maybe they are not known to. Look, the truth is that the NBA does not have a media house where it does. It's only those of us who are in, and then when they give report, they give report every time, once in a while. They give their report of cases they are handling and the ones and how successful they've handled them. They do a lot. The thing is, the way it happens is this: when you bring those cases, okay, the NBA can decide to assign those cases to a lawyer,
to a pro bono lawyer.
Yeah, to a pro bono. It's usually pro bono. They assign it to a lawyer, and maybe the lawyers, going going to court every time, they just try to see how they can augment a bit, which is nothing compared to what the lawyer would have received if he wanted to charge for it. Just to appreciate him. It's okay, And then there are lawyers that even say, you know what, don't worry, I don't need anything. As a matter of fact, right now, to become a senior advocate of Nigeria, it has become one of the qualifications. Yes, you have to. The privileges committee would have to see the number of pro bono cases that you have handled. So the NBA is doing a lot.
Oh, the NBA is doing a lot.
The NBA is doing a lot.
Now, moving forward.
And every lawyer wants to be a senior advocate of Nigeria. So there are, in fact, there are lawyers who are even looking for it now.
All right, now, moving forward, what are your expectations as a lawyer for Nigeria on human rights? Today is the 70th anniversary since the proclamation of the Human Rights Day.
My expectation
going forward for Nigeria.
For Nigeria, you see, Nigerian, we need to change. We need to remove the log. The speck in our eyes before we can take out the log in the eyes of the government institutions that we think are responsible, for most of these right violations. Particularly, like you said, like you mentioned, the Nigerian police. Okay, the Nigerian police is not a perfect organization. It has its issues, but it also has a lot of very wonderful people. Sometimes they're even the ones that protect you. That's the truth from some of these abuses and from people who abuse you. Okay, so we also abuse ourselves a lot. Like the examples I just gave to you, there are people there are a lot of reports about women who mistreat or maltreat their house helps. With some of them, they grind peppers and put in their eyes. Some put in the private parts of their house helps. I read a report of a woman who locked her house help because she was traveling, and she locked the house help and just left food for the house help, left some food for her, and locked her in the house, and traveled and left with the key. What if there was fire incident? Even if not from the house, maybe from another house flat coming into that house, So some of these things, they are so terrible. And like Fela sang, these rights are not just right. He said in one of his songs, he said they are not just. It's not a favor you do when you give us those rights. Those are rights guaranteed by God. He said they are your property. He say human rights now my property. It's not that you are doing us any special favor. Okay, so we need to change. This change needs to start from us, and then we need to take these things to the school, because, like I said, those boys who were beating that young man that night, if they knew better, if they had this consciousness from school, human rights needs to be added to the curriculum in our schools. Needs to start teaching them. Look, there's right to life, there's right to freedom, there's right to free speech, there's right to food, just like Frank was mentioning. Even prisoners, as a matter of fact, when I was in my final year, my project was on the rights of prisoners. Was prisoners' rights? Because prisoners also do have rights, even though they're in prison. Yeah, you understand? So these are the things that we need to start doing by ourselves, because in any case, the people who abuse our rights per se, the people who are in the police and all of that, they come from us.
All right, thank you very much.
So I want to say finally, I want to salute Greetings FM. I was surprised that last year you were so involved. You even brought 2 of the artists here.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing that you guys are doing. So I want to salute that very good gesture, and then and I hope that you guys keep it up. I pray that God will bless you and God will continue to increase this studio, this station, and God takes you to greater heights.